which is a charismatic Pentecostal group. But this is what I want to do. Just have a moment together before we get into that. Can I say this to my neighbors, my sectarian neighbors? You're Pentecostal, you're apostolic, you're charismatic, what have you. You got your Bible ready to go, 1 Corinthians 12 through 1 Corinthians 14. Can I make this case with you? Can you give me some credit for what I'm about to go through on this broadcast for just a moment? Can you give me some credit for honesty? In that somebody says, this guy goes after his own people. 1 Timothy 5:21, that thou observe these things without preferring one before another, doing nothing by partiality. In your New Testament, Paul doesn't just go around rebuking Pharisee Jews and pagan Gentiles only. When you get to Galatians chapter 2, Paul rebukes fellow apostle Peter. That is truly doing things without partiality. And so this is a moment I want to have with my brethren. So I'm just adding a little bit to what my dad did last night and just trying to break through the thinking of some of my brethren. And I'm saying lukewarm brethren, inactive brethren, non-evangelistic brethren. Like I said, this broadcast is designed, Luke chapter 5. We're reaching lost people in the sectarian world, and we would like to be able to say to our brethren, give us a hand. But they don't talk to lost folk. They just have gathering after gathering of already saved people. And this is what I want to do tonight. You heard my dad say, and I'm talking about polishing the pulpit that just happened with a bunch of my brethren out in Sevierville, Tennessee. And you heard my dad say last night, all of these events have to do with the incoming freshman class. And do you not realize that when they put these events together, whether it's CYC, PTP, or some of the other abbreviations, it has to do with getting young people to come into really essentially what y'all would have to say is a Church of Christ school. You have a limited amount of people and you're trying to work them year after year so that you get them funneled into your particular college. Why? Because students equal salaries. And though Christian Chronicle is a super liberal document, Christian Chronicle has been noting for years that the enrollment number for all these different schools has just continuously been going down. Now look at this, y'all. This is what my dad was showing last night. This is an event like a luncheon, some type of conference that was held at Crowley's Ridge. And look who all is there. Abilene Faulkner, David Shannon from Freed-Hardeman, Harding University, Heritage Christian University with Kirk Brothers. And you'll see these people moving in about different, quote, and I'm saying David Shannon, Kirk Brothers. You'll see them moving in and out amongst, quote, conservative events. But then behind the scenes, they're still meeting up with Lipscomb University, Lubbock Christian University, Ohio Valley, which I think is closed now, Oklahoma Christian University, Pepperdine University, Rochester University, and York College. And so they go to these events, and then they come back to PTP, or they come back to some of the other events that are being hosted. But here's what I want you to think about. This is one reason why I get so worked up when we have these discussions. It is Hebrews chapter 5, people dull of hearing. Y'all, you say things like, I've been in the church for however long, I'm a however many generation member of the Church of Christ, but you don't read anything. And I'm not trying to be ugly, but I'm saying if you would look at the history, you would know that history repeats itself. And if you would look at the history, like when my dad says Pepperdine, and people are like, well, I don't know what Pepperdine is. Pepperdine is consistently inviting women preachers. When they have their lineup, they'll just say, from something or another Valley Church. That's because it could be any sectarian group under the sun. So they just say, the Valley Church, the Hills Church, the Mountain Congregation. And you don't know who these people are, but when you get there, they are sectarians at Pepperdine. And that's long been known information. So let me show you this one. Look, you don't have anything else to do, certainly if you're not evangelizing. I've read this book. I don't know why y'all haven't. And if you say, well, I have, Caleb, good for you, honestly. This is written by Ed Harrell, The Churches of Christ in the 20th Century. Now, I'm going to play a clip of Ed Harrell. Listen to this.
That was the same thing that happened in the 19th century. You had these two elements left in the Christian.
History repeat itself. The 1906 piano sect, they split off. What did they do 50 years later? They split again, and then they create the, quote, Disciples of Christ sect in the 50s to the 60s. And so that's what he's talking about. They had a split, history.
That was the same thing that happened in the 19th century. You had these two elements left in the Christian church that sooner or later drift until a whole new series of issues come along, and they then have a gradual division into conservative and liberal wings, which is what I see happening in the last part of the 20th century. How that'll fall out, you still don't know how that's going to fall out. I mean, right now, I gave this speech in Harding. Those guys told me, well, it's 90% are progressive. I kind of doubt it. But even if it is, the question is, how many are going to be in which one of these boxes 20 years from now?
He's a historian. He's giving this talk at ACU, and he tells them while he's down there on a normal basis he doesn't really like being at ACU. But here's my point. He says, I gave this talk at Harding, and they said about 80 to 90% of us are progressives. He said, I don't know about that, but we'll see in 20 years. Now, here's my thing. Now, he did that talk back in 2001. So what's 20 years? 2021. So we're 21 years away from what he said. In 2001, he said, well, 20 years from now, we'll see where Harding is. 20 years later has happened. Where is Harding University? Harding is at Freed-Hardeman. FHU President David Shannon has announced the addition of former Harding University President Bruce McLarty as Minister in Residence for the 2022-2023 academic year. McLarty will teach graduate Bible courses. Look, people go to these schools, and when they get there, they say, I came to this school because I didn't want to go to no liberal school. So everybody who goes to Freed-Hardeman says, I wasn't going to go to no liberal school down at Harding in Searcy, Arkansas. I wasn't going to go to no liberal school, David Lipscomb College over in Nashville. But here's my thing. They are all scratching each other's back while you think that somehow your Bible department is different than their Bible department. Now, this actually was held at Harding, I said. This post was made by Crowley's Ridge. So, got that straight. But now look at this, y'all. This is another book. I said you don't read this history book with Ed Harrell. This is Jimmy Allen. Jimmy Allen is huge in the 60s, and he taught at Harding College back in the 60s. And if you read the book, he doesn't get to just teach at Harding College. He says, I started teaching, and he said, and boom, very quickly, George Benson had me hitting the road to raise money. He wasn't just a teacher. He was the consistent fundraiser. Why? It takes money. What did we say? Where is it? Students equal salaries. These colleges, which then translate to PTP, and what did you see a couple years ago? You saw David Shannon taking the little Freed-Hardeman RV to Jeff Walling's Winterfest. Why? Because we need to spread out the freshman class to all the different institutions. Now, you might be saying, and I want to add this point too, someone says, well, that didn't really explain why you get so worked up. Why I get so worked up is because look, y'all, I don't claim it the schools I went to. They don't like me at this point. That's fine, but that's not why I don't claim them. Y'all agree with what I'm saying. You go to PTP, you agree with what I'm saying. You just won't put it into action. If you're going to Memphis School of Preaching, you are going to the Curtis Cates School of Preaching. Curtis Cates has been dead for a number of years now. But y'all, years ago, I'm saying, and the level of scholarship, that's not even like I need to hesitate. The level of scholarship that Curtis Cates is far beyond B.J. Clark. Like someone says, that's disrespectful. That's factual. But the level of education that Curtis Cates had is miles beyond B.J. Clark. And Curtis Cates wrote the book, A Comprehensive Study on Unity, where he warns about what? Oklahoma Christian, Abilene, Harding, Pepperdine. You're going to the Curtis Cates School, and you probably, who's Curtis Cates? I ain't never seen that book. Somebody did get this book reprinted. Good for you. Here's another one. Brad Cobb had this one reprinted. 1992 Collierville Lectures. What a fellowship. There are people at PTP who are, if you read this book, and we've got a number of copies still extra left over, so I could probably give you one. Their activity at PTP is totally contradicting Mike Hickson. Mike Hickson's writing in this is contradicting his current activity with PTP. And also, Goebel Music, a crucial study of a critical subject, fellowship. Someone said, I don't know who Goebel Music is. Goebel Music was very popular because he wrote the book called Behold a Pattern. Everybody loved it. And this book is very, very good. And it's probably in your School of Preaching library, and you could be looking at it. So that's why I get worked up, is because y'all really do believe what I'm putting out here. Now I want to show you something else. Harding. Ed Harrell said, well, we'll see in 20 years where Harding is. Let me show you where Harding is. And you might be saying, what's all this got to do with PTP? Real easy. This is just one, okay? So this is the 2022 schedule for PTP. Tommy South. Okay, where was Tommy South in, 2021? Tommy South was at the Harding Lectures in 2021. Now, look at this. I'm going to go all the way to the top. Harding, events, 2021. Who else is there? David Shannon, the president of Freed-Hardeman University. Now, look at who else is there. Phil Brookman. Who's Phil Brookman? Phil Brookman is from, I can't think of where he is in Oklahoma. He's in a congregation in Oklahoma, but I know this. He is a regular lectureship speaker at Pepperdine. What's Pepperdine? Pepperdine is where they use women preachers and they invite sectarian teachers in. Now that's Phil Brookman. Tommy South is there. David Shannon is there. What a fellowship. Mike Hickson, Billy Bland, B.J. Clark, they call fellowship joint participation. Is sharing the pulpit at a lectureship not joint participation? It just baffles me that the current director of Memphis School of Preaching just suddenly doesn't care about fellowship when he wrote joint participation in 1992. It's not just Phil Brookman, and this is my thing. People, I get so worked up because you don't read history, and then it's Oklahoma City where Phil Brookman is. You don't read history, and you just don't pay attention. This is where somebody says, bless your heart, you just don't pay attention. In 2001, when David Shannon, president of Freed-Hardeman, right? Freed-Hardeman, David Shannon is bringing Harding to Freed-Hardeman. Who else is at 2021 Harding Lectures? Matt Dabbs. I don't know who he is. You don't know who anybody is. Matt Dabbs has taken over wineskins from Rubel Shelley. What? Man, I wish y'all learned some more names besides Rubel Shelley. Poor Rubel Shelley. He just did all that stuff back in the 90s, and he just doesn't ever get to not be Matt Dabbs. Matt Dabbs is your new Rubel Shelley. How about that? Wineskins. Do y'all remember wineskins? Harding, 2021. It just doesn't get any more direct. David Shannon, Freed-Hardeman. David Shannon, Freed-Hardeman. Bruce McLarty, Harding University. Matt Dabbs, Pepperdine, wineskins. I get worked up because it is dishonest, y'all. It is dishonest for you to act like you don't see this, and then on Sunday morning Bible class, y'all are going to get in your Bible class and you're going to skin the sects alive because you're going to say, these people just don't see it. They see it, they just don't want to see it. Y'all don't want to see it. Now, can I make a point here? I don't play y'all sectarian games. I don't have my own people, okay? I'm trying my hardest as an imperfect individual to just be consistent. Is there really anything wrong with that? Caleb, you are so haughty. You are so holier than that. No, I'm trying to do what everybody claims they are interested in doing, which is being consistent. Now, some of y'all are interested in being consistent, and you say, well, Caleb, we're working on it. We're working on it over at PTP. No, you're not. They are working on you. They're influencing you. You're telling me who? Who's influencing? Dan Winkler, Phil Sanders, Kirk Brothers, Tommy South, all these individuals that are on the website. Why did they even get to come back to 2022? You took a 2-year break, didn't you? No 2020, no 2021. You took a 2-year break. You could have cleaned house and you didn't. So don't give me this business about, well, we're working on it. No, you're not. You're compromising. And all the while, those folk are influencing you. And all the while, they're scratching backs, And what does PTP even encourage you to do? PTP gets us so revved up. We have an annual day of door knocking. What a joke. It is a joke. The only reason you don't like it is because you don't like me saying it because it's so obvious it's a joke. Acts 5:42. You honestly think, look, Dan Winkler right there, Tommy South, you honestly think, New Testament, that in y'all's lineup of what you're doing, with all of these, I'm saying y'all, these are businesses, scratching one another's back, annual day of door knocking, do you honestly think the Apostle Paul would be in there with you? Tonight, 7 o'clock, prime time, we've got Saul of Tarsus, taught at the feet of Gamaliel, traveled all across Asia Minor, took the time out to be here with us tonight in Sevierville, Tennessee. And you say, Caleb, you mock. I do mock. It's a joke. There's no way that I could have said this tonight, right? You can tell I started out kind of soft and then I got worked up like I said I would. There's no way I could have said this that would make it any easier to take. It's us few, nobody new. Y'all are doing inside your four walls just like anybody else is doing. And I'm saying I'm out here tonight about to talk to my Pentecostal neighbors, and I'm at least trying to give them a moment and say, hey, y'all, can you at least give me this? I am not doing anything by partiality. Someone says, boy, I told somebody the other night, I told the TV station owner out in Wilson, North Carolina, she was talking about the broadcast. I was going to talk about some particular Baptists that night, and I had been talking about Pentecostals. And I said, look, I can't be talking about the Pentecostals every single week. I said, I got to spread this out. And I can't turn a blind eye to what my brethren do. To do that would basically be hypocritical, which is the only way that PTP gets to keep going at the rate they're going. They could clean house, they just have chosen not to. I love them, and I can say that, and they won't believe it. I'm certainly, what do I have to gain out of doing this? But